This is Wicca for Beginners, Fundamentals of Philosophy and Practice by Thea Sabin. Published by Llewellyn, and this first came out in 2006. This was the book that was recommended to me before I started formally practicing with a coven. It seems like every couple of years, someone comes out with a fairly decent Wicca 101 style book, but this is just kind of the one that stuck with me personally. None of these books are perfect, and they should never be treated as concrete doctrine. We all have slightly different ideas for what constitutes a Wiccan practice, but this one does a pretty good job at getting the basics out of the way. So, with one of the briefest bios possible, let's meet the author. Thea Sabin is a high priestess who has practiced Wicca for more than 20 years. She lives in the Pacific Northwest. Boom. That's all we need to know, right? Okay, just kidding. There's actually a longer bio inside the book, and I'll show that one to you. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it does tell us that Thea is a professional editor, writer, and web geek. She's been practicing Wicca since she was a teenager, and she studied with a British traditional coven. Okay, so that's going to be the flavor of this book per se. BTW, or British Traditional Witchcraft. Now, let's look at the table of contents. Chapter 1, What's Wicca? Pretty self-explanatory. Thea says that when she interviews seekers with her husband, if they tell us they are looking for a nature-based religion, a path of self-empowerment, a way to commune with deity, or something along those lines, we continue the conversation. If they tell us they want to hex their ex-lovers, brew cauldrons full of toxic stuff, make others fall in love with them, worship the devil, or fly on broomsticks, we tell them they're out of luck and politely suggest that they seek out a therapist. And the rest of the chapter goes on to extrapolate on that in further detail. Chapter 2, some basic principles and ethics, things that many Wiccans believe, maybe not all Wiccans, but many. Chapter 3, fundamental Wiccan tools. These are not physical tools. We'll talk about those in later chapters. These are skills, energy work, visualization, grounding, and shielding. Chapter 4, trance, meditation, and path working. Don't forget to meditate, guys. It's important, so it's in the book right at the start. Chapter 5, the circle, in which Thea explains sacred space. Chapter 6, the 4 elements and the 4 quarters. Earth, air, water, and fire. Chapter 7, getting to know the Wiccan gods, an introduction to some forms of deity. Chapter 8, tools, toys, and altars. This is where you're going to learn about the physical tools, the athame, the chalice, the wand. And notice how this is like more than halfway through the book. Before touching an athame is ever mentioned, we first had to read about things like visualization and meditation. And I rather like the structure and order there. Chapter 9, Wiccan holidays, that's the wheel of the year. Chapter 10, putting it all together. This is how to write a ritual. Chapter 11, so you're curious about magic. This is how to craft your own spells. And chapter 12, where do I go from here? So now that the very basics have been covered, what do you do with that? Do you want to practice by yourself? Do you want to join a coven? If so, do you have a particular tradition that you're interested in? And these are all questions that are going to be addressed. And that's the end of the book. So you see, it's very beginner friendly and aimed at people who maybe have never practiced before. Maybe someone who doesn't even know if they do want to practice. It's just a rundown of lots of the basics, so that you can be better informed of how to start. Because honestly, at the end of this book, maybe you haven't even started your practice. And that's why the last chapter is kind of like the beginning of things in actuality. It's a pretty quick read. I'm just going to do a little flip through here so you can kind of see what is going on with the book and what you're going to see inside. There's just a few diagrams like this one on page 109 where you can see the pentagrams, and then this one on page 148 so that you can see what a sample altar setup might look like. And as far as the drop test goes, so should you have this book? Should you read this book? Well, I've got a few different perspectives for you. If you are someone who is interested in Wicca and has never really been exposed to the basics, this will be valuable to you in terms of giving you a start. If you're a seasoned practitioner, well, this isn't going to offer you very much. However, if you are looking to start teaching about Wicca, like maybe you've been practicing for a few years and finally decided that it's time to start sharing a little bit of that knowledge with others, and maybe you're going to do that in the form of some Wicca 101 classes, then this can give you a helpful outline of what types of topics to cover or even in what order to address different concepts. There's a link below so that you can grab a copy for yourself, and as always, come back here and tell me what you think.